All right, y'all. So our first question wants us to graph the equation by plotting points. So I'm going to write this down. 6y plus 3x equals -9. All right, so I'm going to go to the pad and solve this. Um, and this is probably one of the trickier questions on here right off the bat. Um, but to graph this, I'm going to solve it for y. Once I solve it for y, I can then plot 2 points and then graph it and be done. So y'all, I'm going to solve it for y by subtracting 3x from both sides first. So that brings down my 6y. That cancels on that side. And then these are not like terms, so I usually put my x's first and then my number. All right, now turn the 6y into a 1y by dividing everything by 6. All right, also 6 divided by 6 makes that 1y like I wanted. -3 won't divide by 6, but we can reduce that to a -1/2 x. So I divided 3 out of top and bottom. And then minus, and then this won't divide, but I can reduce this fraction by dividing both of these by 3, and I'll get a 3/2. So at this point, you could graph this on your calculator in y1. Go to y1 and graph this in your calculator. You can get 2 points that way to graph it. And by hand, um, plot 2 points that way. So I'm going to use 0 for my x first. So if x is 0, -1/2 times 0 is 0. And 0 minus 3/2 will give me a -3/2. Now, when you're graphing, and if you want to turn that into a decimal, you could. That -3/2 is the same as a -1.5. So it might be easier to actually graph it as the decimal versus the fraction, okay? All right, so then I'm going to pick a 1 for my x. So let me see if I put a 1 in here. -1/2 times 1 is -1/2. Minus my 3/2. So they got a common denominator. So the bottom will stay 2. And then -1 minus 3 gives me -4. And y'all, that one I can reduce. -4 divided by 2 gives me a -2. So 2 points I can now plot and be done with that, okay? So let me go back to MathLab. Click the enlarge graph. That's a line, so we're going to use the line tool on number 1. So my first point was 0 for the x, and then -1.5. So if I go down, you see the little yellow band up there is changing as I move down. So now I'm at 0, -1.5. I'm going to click that. And then my second point was right 1, down 2. So I'm at 1, -2. Click that point, and y'all save that graph. All right, so you got your first one. You're going to hit next. And this one wants me to graph y equals x cubed minus 3. So let me show you what I would do on that one. So this one's already solved for y. So I will just set up my table, my x and y table. Now, since this is a cube, the numbers I'm going to pick are going to be -1, 0, 1, and 2. So if you'll use these numbers, you can keep your graph really small and where it'll fit on that MathLab screen, okay? So you're just going to push all four of these numbers in. So first I got -1 cubed minus 3. Well, y'all, -1 times -1 times -1 is -1 minus 3. -1 minus 3 is -4. When I put a 0 in here, 0 to any exponent is 0. So that gives me 0 minus 3, which is -3. If you put a 1 in here, you'll have y equals 1 cubed minus 3. Well, 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. And then 1 minus 3 is a -2. All right, when I put a 2 in, I'll have y equals 2 cubed minus 3. All right, y'all, 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So that gives me 8 minus 3, which is 5. So I got 4 points now because on this x cubed graph, it's going to use the curvy 4-point cubic tool, okay? So let's go plot that. And you just got to be careful on this one because I've seen people already tried this one. And your graphs look identical, except you must be off just a hair or two, okay? So 4-point quadratic tool, my first point was -1, -4. So go left to -1, down to -4. And I always look in that little yellow band on top to make sure my point's where I want it. So click that. I had 0, -3. Click that. I had right 1, down 2. Click that. And then my last point was right 2, up 5. So there I'm at 2, 5, and click. So look at that little yellow band and make sure the point is where you want it before you actually plot it, okay? All right, also I would save that, click next. All right, so this was the Fahrenheit function. F of C equals 9/5 C plus 32. They want to know what Fahrenheit temperature is equivalent to a -5 degrees Celsius. So basically, we're putting a 5 in for the C, and we're going to see what we get. So we're finding F of -5. That's going to equal 9/5 times -5 plus 32. All right, y'all, so you can multiply then divide. So 9 times -5 is -45. -45 divided by 5 gives you a -9. Or you could do the other way to get that. You can do -5 divided by 5, makes that a -1. 9 times -1 is -9. And then you got plus 32. So -9 plus 32, unlike signs, so subtract 9 from 32, you get 23, and the answer will have the same sign as the larger number. So that's going to be a positive 23. So this one was multiple choice, I believe. So we're looking for 23 degrees, so we would click C. Hey, y'all, so I'm going to pull up my chat on this one. So the question, is this a function? Now remember, if it's a function, every one of the domain values can only point to one range value. So y'all look at that. 12 only points to 4. 4 only points to 25. 14 only points to 4. So Jayla, that's perfect. That is definitely a function. And y'all, every one I've seen looks just like that one. So it is definitely a function, okay? All righty, y'all. So let me write this down. We got f of x equals negative 2x plus 3. So I wanted to give you some graphing where you had some points given, and you just had to find the y values and graph it. All right, y'all. So I got everything written down. So let's go work this one, and then we'll come back and actually graph it, okay? Now, we'll say number 5 is going to be a line. So you will use the 2-point line tool when you graph it. So that means you're going to have 3 points. All we got to do is plot 2 of them, okay? All right, so first I'll find f of negative 2. So that's going to be negative 2 times x, which is negative 2, plus 3. Well, negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4, plus 3, which gives me 7. All right, then he want me to find f of 0. F of 0 will equal negative 2 times 0 plus 3. So same equation, I'm just putting a different number in for the x. Well, negative 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3, which gives me 3. Then I had to find f of 2. That's going to equal negative 2 times x, which is 2, plus 3. All righty, so negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, plus 3, and negative 4 plus 3. You're adding unlike signs. So 4 minus 3 is 1, and it gets the sign of the larger number. So that'll be a negative 1. So we got to put in our y values first and then graph it in MathLab. And remember, I only got to plot 2 of them points. All right, so at negative 2, we got a 7. When it was 0, I got a 3. When it was 2, I got a negative 1. Now you're going to click the enlarge graph. It's a line, so you're going to grab the line tool. And I'm plotting 2 points. So let me do negative 2, 7. So go left 2, up 7. So there's negative 2, 7. And then I'll do 0, 3. So 0 and then up 3. So y'all got 2 points on it. That's all I needed. So I can save that and go to the next. All right, y'all, this one, f of x equals 7 minus absolute value of x. So let me get my x's and y's. So this one is negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. The reason this one's giving you 5 points is we want you to see the symmetry on this graph. Now, that's the absolute value, so when I graph it, I'm going to use the absolute value tool. So we'll get our 5 numbers here, the y values. Now this one's picky about the first point to plot. And the first point you plot is going to be the middle point. That will be the vertex. So this middle point, I'll plot it. And then I can pick any of the other 4 points, okay? All right, y'all, so let's go. Starting with negative 2. F of negative 2 will be 7 minus absolute value of negative 2. So you got to start with that absolute value first. Absolute value of a negative 2 is a positive 2. So then I got 7 minus 2, which give me 5. f of negative 1 will equal 7 minus absolute value of negative 1. So bring down your 7 minus. Notice I'm not making these two negatives into a positive because of that absolute value, okay? So I'm bringing down the 7 into minus. Then I'm taking the absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. So that gives you 7 minus 1, which is 6. All right, next is 0. That'll be 7 minus absolute value of 0. So bring down the 7 minus. Absolute value of 0 is 0. And 7 minus 0 is 7. All right, then I had a 1. F of 1 equals 7 minus absolute value of 1. So bring down the 7 minus. Absolute value of 1 is 1. So notice, the absolute value of negative 1 is the same thing as the absolute value of 1. They're both 1. And then 7 minus 1 is 6. So negative 1 and 1 both gave me 6. So let me try the last one, which is the absolute with a 2. So that'll be 7 minus absolute value of 2. So bring down the 7 minus. Absolute value of 2 is 2. And then 7 minus 2 is 5. So we just wanted y'all to see that negative 1 and 1 had the same y value. Negative 2 and 2 have the same y value. And when you graph it, you gotta graph that middle point first, okay? All right, y'all, so let's go to play with this one. So first they wanted our numbers. We had 5, 6, 7, 6, and 5. Now I'm going to click the enlarge graph. I'm going to choose the 2-point absolute value tool. And the first point I got to plot is my 0, 7. So I'm at 0. I'm going to go up to 7 and click it. And then I can pick any of the other 4 points. So y'all, I'll just do 1, 6. That one's easy. So I go right 1, up 6. At that point, I've got my graph drawn. So I would save that and then hit enter. All right, y'all, let me show y'all that one on the calculator because I'll just show you how I do that on the calculator. I'd go to y equals. I'd put in 7 minus. So to get absolute value, you can hit math, arrow right to number, and hit enter. ABS is absolute value. And then put my X in there. So if you go to second graph, what did my number start at? Negative 2. So there's negative 2, 5, negative 1, 6, 0, 7, 1, 6, 2, 5. So you can get all your values right there. And then if you want to look at the graph, hit graph. And then there's our upside down V-shaped absolute value graph, okay? All right, y'all, so then we hit next. All righty, so this is what, number 7? And they got f of x equals negative x squared minus 9. So let me make up my table they're giving me. So negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. All right, y'all. So this is basically another one where they want y'all to see symmetry in the graph. Since that's the x squared graph, when I'm done, I'll be graphing with a 3-point x squared tool or the quadratic tool, whichever one they're calling it. But the x squared graphs are the U-shaped parabolas, okay? So we got to find our 5 numbers. Now, what messes up a lot of people is that little negative there. So let me show you. F of -2. You write that negative first, then put in your x, which is -2, square that, minus 9. So once again, you can't go negative times negative and make that a positive because you got the exponent here. So bring down that first negative, square -2. Well, y'all, -2 times -2 is 4. And then bring down that minus 9. So if you got a negative in front of an x squared, it's going to stay negative. And then -4 minus 9 is -13. Same thing with f of -1. That's going to be a negative times -1 squared minus 9. Bring down that negative. -1 times -1 is 1. And then bring down that minus 9. And -1 minus 9, -10. All right, you're putting a 0 in. So f of 0 equals that negative times 0 squared minus 9. Well, y'all, this is all just a big 0, right? Because 0 squared is 0 times that negative is 0. So you're going to get 0 minus 9, which is -9. Now, at this point, you should see that I'm going to get the same answer for 1 as I did -1, and the same answer as 2 as I did -2. So let's start with f of 1. That'll be negative times 1 squared minus 9. So bring down that negative. 1 times 1 is 1. And then bring down that minus 9. And y'all look, -1 minus 9 is -10. And then finally, f of 2 will equal negative times 2 squared minus 9. So I'm going to bring down my negative. 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. So that's going to give me a -4 minus 9, which is -13. So on number 6 with the absolute value, number 7 with the x squared graph, you should see some symmetry on these. See how I'm getting to -13 on -2 and 2, -10 on -1 and 1, okay? All right, y'all, so I got my points. Let's go plot them in and then graph it. All right, y'all, so I had -13, -10, -9, -10, and then -13. All right, then click the enlarge graph. Remember, it's the 3-point quadratic tool, so click that. And this one ain't picky. You can pick any 3 points you want. So I'm going to do -1, -10. So go -1 down to -10. I'm going to do 0, -9. So 0 down to -9. And then I'll do 1, -10, and click. I got my 3 points plotted. So now I can move on to the next. Now on the calculator, that's the same thing. Go to y equals. I want to clear this off. I had negative x squared minus 9. So y'all, the table, second graph, go to the table. There's all your values. -2, -13, -1, -10, 0, -9, 1, -10, 2, -13. And then to look at it, hit graph, and there we go. You don't see as much on our calculators because our windows are set at 10 by 10. And on MathLab, that's going out to 20. Okay. All right, y'all save that graph and then next. Hey, y'all, so this one's on y'all. Let me make this a little bigger for you. Is this graph a function? Now, if it's a function, it has to pass the vertical line test. And a vertical line says if a vertical line can intersect a graph more than once, it's not a function. So if you're throwing a vertical line on that, it's going to intersect the top of the graph and the bottom of the graph. So since the vertical line can intersect that graph more than once, it is no, not a function. Because y'all, that means these x's have a positive value they can choose or a negative. And the x's cannot have a choice, okay? So if that vertical line can intersect it more than once, you better put no, okay? All right, y'all, so number 9 here wants me to find the domain. They're giving me g of x equals 6 divided by 2 minus 9x. All right, so basically, since it's a domain problem, you're going to set the bottom equal to 0 and solve that. Once we solve this, we have the number we're kicking out of our domain. All right, y'all, so this one I would subtract 2 first. That's going to cancel. That's going to give me -9x equals -2. Divide both sides by -9. So that cancels, giving me a 1x. And then a negative divided by negative makes this a positive 2 over 9. So make sure negative divided by negative is a positive on that. So we're wanting the one that says x cannot equal 2/9. Alrighty, y'all. So I think that was A, B, C, D again. Now you don't want the one with the greater than or equal for sure. You want the one like A where it says x cannot equal 2/9. Okay. All right, that's it on that one. So next. All right, so they're giving me f of x equals -10x plus 14. G of x equals x squared plus 14. They want me to find f of -3 plus g of -3. So on this one, we're basically plugging in numbers and then seeing what we get. So I'm finding f plus g of -3. That'll equal my f plus my g. So f will equal -10 times x, which is -3 plus 14. G will be -3 squared plus 14. Be careful. Put that -3 in its own parentheses, okay? All right, so inside the first parentheses, -10 times -3 is 30 plus 14. Over here, I'm going to square that -3. -3 times -3 is 9 plus my 14. All right, so 30 plus 14 is 44. And then 9 plus 14 is 23. And then we would add 44 and 23 and get what, 67? Final answer. If they give you numbers for your variable, you got to come up with a single number when you work that, okay? Hey, also, we got a 67 on that. So we would plug that into the blank. And then next. So we'll probably have a few where we're doing that kind of stuff. All right, y'all, number 11, f of x equals negative 5x plus 20. G of x equals x squared plus 3. We're finding f of negative 6 divided by g of negative 6. So y'all be careful. This test, they're writing those negative numbers just to see what you're going to do with them, especially when you're squaring them, okay? So yeah, be careful with these negatives. So basically, I'm finding f divided by g of a negative 6. So my f will be on top, negative 5 times negative 6 for x plus 20. On bottom, x squared will be negative 6 squared plus 3. So on top, I'm going to multiply first. So negative 5 times negative 6 is 30 plus my 20. Negative 6 squared on the bottom. Negative 6 times negative 6 is a positive 36 plus 3. All right, y'all, so let's see. 30 and 20 give me 50 on top. 36 plus 3 give me 39 on the bottom. And 50 and 39 have no common factors other than 1. So this will not reduce. So that should be my final answer. Now I'll show you a trick. If you want to see if a fraction will reduce, you can go to your calculator. And I had what, 50 divided by 39. That'll give me a decimal. But if you'll turn the decimal back into a fraction by hitting math, enter, enter, I get 50 over 39. So that tells me that that fraction does not reduce. So y'all, I'm going to click in the blank, go to the fraction thing down here, and put in my 50 on top and my 39 on the bottom. But y'all be careful. I have seen that one give people numbers that will reduce, okay? All right, y'all, let me write this one down. So this is what, number 12. F of x is going to equal negative 2x plus 4. G of x is going to equal x squared plus 2. Now this time they just want me to find f plus g of an x. So y'all, they're not giving me any numbers for the x's. So we can only simplify this one basically. So f plus g of x will equal my f plus my g. F is negative 2x plus 4. G was x squared plus 2. When you're adding, you can drop parentheses and everything will stay the same sign. If it's positive, it'll stay positive down here, okay? So now the only thing is to combine like terms and put it in descending order. So I'm going to bring down the x squared first. Then I'll bring down that negative 2x. And I do have like terms that are the numbers. So 4 plus 2 will give me a positive 6. Now I have no more like terms, so I would stop right there and put that into MATLAB, okay? All right, so let's click the blank. We got X, and then come down here and use the superscript with the blue box. Put in your exponent of 2, and then arrow right and come back down. Put in a minus 2x, and then a plus 6. All right, so x squared minus 2x plus 6. Once that's in there, we hit next. All right, y'all. F of x equals negative 3x plus 2. G of x equals x squared minus 3. They want me to find g minus f of x. So once again, they gave us no numbers for this one. So all we can do is simplify it and combine like terms and all that fun stuff. Now this is g minus f. So this will be my g minus my f. Well, g was x squared minus 3. F is a negative 3x plus 2. Now for y'all that did the practice one, let me show you where you was making a little bit of mistakes. So you drop the first parentheses and bring out the x squared minus 3. I was getting a few people right here. Remember, you're subtracting a negative. So that's like a negative times a negative, which will make that a positive 3x. And then you got that negative times that positive 2. Well, negative times a positive makes that a negative 2. So one sign was killing people on these, okay? All right, so let me put them in descending order. I got my x squared plus my 3x. So my like terms, negative 3, negative 2, give me a negative 5. So remember, adding like signs, add the numbers, and keep that sign, okay? All right, so we're wanting to put that into MATLAB. X squared plus 3x minus 5. So I click in the blank, X, come down here and get my superscript, square that, arrow down, plus 3x, and then minus 5. All right, also we got that in, we would hit next. And so 14 wants all the domains. Now, all three of these will have the same domain. Remember, we did these in class, and the sum difference in product will always have the same domain. So if you can get the first one, you got the last two also, okay? So I got f of x equals 1 over x minus 1. G of x equals 4x cubed. So we're doing the sum difference and product. So like I said, if you do the sum, that's going to be f plus g of x. So that's going to equal your f plus your g. So f was 1 over x minus 1. G was 4x to the cube. So y'all, let me ask y'all this. Are there any numbers that we would have to exclude from this domain? And remember, what you're looking for are fractions with a denominator. So on this one, you got a fraction right here. So what x value would make this equal 0 down here? And good job, that'd be a 1, right? If I put a 1 in there, 1 minus 1 is 0. 1 divided by 0 is undefined. So we know x cannot equal 1. And y'all, that's the only number that I cannot put in here. Any other number I can put in there and then add and be done with this. So x cannot equal 1. And y'all, it's going to do the same thing for subtraction. Because the difference will be f minus g of x. That'll equal your f, 1 over x minus 1, minus your g, 4x cubed. You still got the same fraction. So x cannot equal 1. And then if you're looking at the product, that would be f times g of x. That'll equal your f, 1 over x minus 1, times g, 4x to the cube. You still have the same fraction there, so x still cannot equal a positive 1. All three of these domains will be the same. So you're going to click A, x is a real number, and x, go down here and get the cannot equals 1. And then on the next one, you're going to click A, x is a real number, and x cannot equal 1. And then on the product, you're going to click A, x is a real number, and x cannot equal 1. All three of them got to match if you want to get that one right, okay? All right, y'all, then we hit next. All right, y'all, so let me write this one down real quick. X plus y plus z equals 9. 2x plus 5y plus 2z equals 24. And then negative x plus 9y minus 3z equals 5. All righty. So, system of equations with three variables. So, y'all, I'm going to ask y'all this. Are y'all doing this by hand, or do y'all want me to show it by a calculator? All right, so y'all doing them by hand. Good job. All right, y'all. So, I've got to choose a variable to eliminate. And y'all, one of those variables looks a lot easier than the other two. So what do y'all think we should eliminate? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Them x's look pretty quick, right? So I'm going to start out by eliminating x. And y'all remember, I'm going to name this 1, 2, and 3. Just label my equations. So I'm going to add 1 and 3 first and get rid of x. And I don't have to change nothing. I got a positive x and a negative x, so that will quick um, will be gone pretty quick. So there's 1. 3 was negative x plus 9y minus 3z equaled 5. So we'll add them and look at that. The x's are going to cancel. So 1 and 9 give me 10y. 1 and negative 3 give me negative 2z. And then 9 plus 5 is 14. So there's my first equation of my new system. All right, so I'm going to eliminate x now, and I got to use the second row this time. So what I'm going to use is the second row and the third row. But y'all, if I'm going to eliminate the x's, what do you need to multiply this third row by? Good job. We're going to multiply that by a 2. All right, y'all, so let me bring down my second row real quick. So I'm going to add 2 and 3, and then I got to change 3, remember. All right, so I'm going to bring down my 2x plus 5y plus 2z equal 24. Now we're multiplying this row by 2, so that's going to give me a negative 2x. 2 times 9 is 18y. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6z. And then 2 times 5 is a 10. But y'all look at that. X's are canceled again. So we got 5 and 18, which is, 23y. 2 and negative 6 is negative 4z. 24 and 10 is 34. All right, so let me write these two down now. So there's that equation, and then I got my 23y minus 4z equaled 34. All right, so I think the z's will be easier here. So here, I'm going to eliminate the z. Now, if I'm going to eliminate the z, I'm going to change this first row, because this one's negative 4. We need to make this negative 2z into a positive 4z. So, Jada, what you got? Negative 2? That sounds good. All right, so let's see what we get. Negative 2 times 10 is negative 20y. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4z. Negative 2 times 14 is negative 28. Now bring down your second row. All right, y'all, so the z's do cancel. So let's see what we got left. Negative 20 and 23, give me what, 3y. That's going to equal 34 and negative 28, which is a positive 6. So y'all, one more move. We got the y solved for, and then we just start doing all that back substituting, okay? So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So I know now that y equals a positive 2. Good job, Jayla. All right, so back substitute. So you got to pick one of your two equations with the y and the z in it, because we know what y's are. We can plug in and get the z, okay? So I'll just use this one. 10 times y, which is 2, minus 2z has to equal 14. But y'all, it don't matter. You could have picked this one. You could have picked this one. Any of these with the two variables, okay? All right, y'all, so that's 20 minus 2z equals 14. I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. That cancels. I got negative 2z. That's going to give me a negative 6. And y'all divide both sides by negative 2. Well, that cancels. I get z. Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is a positive 3. So I know y, I know z. So now I can back substitute and get my last letter. And, I'm probably going to use that first one. X plus y plus z equals 9. I don't know x, but I know y is 2. I know z is 3. And altogether, that's going to equal 9. So add like terms and you get x plus 5 equals 9. And y'all, final step, subtract that 5 from both sides. And I get x is a positive 4. So remember, this will be 4 for the x, 2 for the y, 3 for the z. And I can't remember, let me see if they give me the parentheses already. So yeah, they're giving us the parentheses. So we're just putting in the numbers. 4, what I get? 2 and 3. All right, y'all put them numbers in and then hit next. All right, y'all, so this one's giving people fits. So let me show you how I would do this one. So the first number is 50 more than the sum of the other two numbers. Alrighty, because I'm having a lot of y'all miss this one, so let me show y'all how to do this. So the first number, I don't know what it is. I'm going to call it X. Is your equals, and then it's 50 more than the sum of the other two numbers. Well, sum is adding, and then 50 more will be like you're adding 50. So I don't know the other two numbers, so that'll be Y plus Z. That's the sum of the other two numbers, and then plus 50. So this is what the sentence translated into, but the trick is to get all the variables on the left side equal to the number. So what you had to do in here was come in and subtract a y from both sides and subtract a z from both sides. So this side, you basically got an x minus y minus z. Over here, those y's cancel, the z's cancel. So all that's left is your 50. So you want the one x minus y minus z equaled 50, okay? And see, this one will have three answers. So y'all, we want A. Um, X minus Y minus Z equals 50. That's been the same answer every time I've done this problem, okay? Alrighty, y'all, so let me see. Um, Let me stop this for a second. It's 10:55, so I'm gonna give y'all a break real quick. So let me stop my recording. Alrighty, y'all. So let me write this down. Angle B is 16 more than 3 times A. Then it says angle C is 44 more than A. Then they want me to find the measure of each angle. Alrighty, y'all. So let me make my equations. So B is members equals 16 more than 3 times A. So that'll be 3A plus 16. So y'all will be very similar to mine. The only difference I've seen on this was the 16 on them, okay? And this one says C is equals 44 more than A. So that'll be A plus 44. All right, so remember, I need to get the variables on one side equal to the number. So you're going to move the 3A to the other side and make it negative. So that's going to give you negative 3A plus B is going to equal 16. Same thing here. You're going to move the A to the other side and make it negative. So that's going to give you negative A plus C is going to equal 44. So y'all's two equations are going to be just like this other than the 16 and the 44, okay? Now you had to have a third equation. And the third equation is what you know about the three angles of a triangle. Because remember, we're dealing with a triangle. And we know that 1, 2, 3 angles of the triangle have to add up to equal 180. So A plus B plus C equals 180. So there's my equation 1, equation 2, equation 3. Y'all, at this point, y'all are going to look exactly like mine other than them two numbers there, okay? But everything else will set up like this. So I've got to choose a variable to eliminate. So these ones are easier if you'll eliminate the variable that's missing. Like I could do the two B's because that one's missing a B. I could do the two C's because that one's missing a C. Because then it's a little easier work if you eliminate either the B or the C, okay? So y'all let y'all choose. What am I going to eliminate? So y'all pick a variable for me to eliminate. So we're going to eliminate the B. So since both these B's are positive, I'm going to take this first equation and multiply by -1. That way that'll make that a negative B and they'll cancel. So negative times negative makes that a positive 3A. Negative times positive makes that a negative B. And then negative times positive makes that a negative 16. Then I'm going to bring over A plus B plus C equals 180. All right, y'all, let's see what we get. 3 and 1 give me 4A. The B's canceled. I got a plus C. And then that's going to equal 180 minus 16, which is 164. All righty. So look at this. I used row 1 and 3. So now row 2, it don't have a B, so I can bring that with this one. So I got 4A plus C equals 164. This is a negative A plus C equals 44. So now we can choose to get rid of the A or the C. So y'all on this one, what do y'all want to eliminate? A's or C's? And both of them are pretty easy, either one. So you want me to eliminate the C? So to eliminate the C, since they're both positive, I'm going to multiply that row by -1. So the first row stays the same. Multiplying this row by -1, I get a positive A, a negative C, and a negative 44. All right, y'all, let's see. 4 and 1 give me 5A. C's cancel. And then 164 minus 44 gives me 120. So now I can solve it and get angle A. Divide both sides by 5. So that gives me a 1A. And then y'all, what's that? 120 divided by 5 is what y'all getting? 24 on that? Yep, there we go. So I know A is 24. I can plug into 24 and get B real quick. So let's back substitute. I'm going to use this one. B equals 3 times A, which is 24, plus 16. All right, 3 times 24 is 72, plus 16. And y'all, what's that? 72 and 16 give me what? 88? All right, so we know B is 88. Now we can get C, and I'm going to back substitute on it. Now I can use this one that says C equals A, which is 24 plus 44. All right, y'all, so add them and see what we get. And that is 68. So A is 24, B is 88, C is 68. If you add all three of them together, you should get 180. Because remember, we said that the three angles equaled 180. So if you wanted to add them up on your calculator real quick, you could do 24 plus 88 plus 68, and that's going to equal 180. Okay? All right, so Math Lab was a little picky. It wanted each angle. So A, we said, was 24. B, we said, was 88. And then C was 68. Throw them three in there and hit next. All right, so this will be the last of the systems. All right, y'all. Sum of three numbers is 57. Then they said the difference of largest and smallest is 49. And then it says the sum of the two smaller numbers is 14. Find the numbers. Now notice in the answer blank, it says the three numbers from largest to smallest, okay? So the sum of three numbers is 57. X plus Y plus Z equaled 57. So now I'm going to let the X be my largest number and the Z be my smallest number. And the Y will be my middle number. So the difference of the largest and smallest, so difference is subtraction. So the largest is X The smallest is z. So x minus z equals 49. Then it said the sum of the two smaller numbers. Well, the two smaller numbers will be my middle and small. So sum is adding. So y plus z equaled 14. So y'all will set up the same exact way. The only difference is going to be these three numbers here, okay? But your left side will set up just like that. So y'all, it's time for y'all to choose a variable that y'all want me to eliminate. And y'all, it don't matter. So y'all going to go to y. So we're going to eliminate the y. So to eliminate the y, since they're both positive, I'm going to multiply my last row by -1. So the top row stays the same. X plus y plus z equals 57. Multiplying by -1, negative times positive gives you a negative y. Negative times positive gives you a negative z. And then negative times positive gives you a negative 14. Oh, you know what? You picked the perfect variable because watch this. The x comes down. Y'all look at that. The y's cancel. The z's cancel. 57 minus 14 is 43. I know what x equals now. So you picked a good variable to eliminate. So y'all, if y'all are doing this, eliminate the y, because then you'll have your x solved for. So now, if I want to get the z, I know what x is, so I'm going to back substitute. So if y'all pick the right variables, you can make these a lot smaller than if you don't pick the right variable, okay? So x was 43, so that's going to give me 43 minus z equals 49. So y'all saw that. Subtract 43. That's going to cancel. I get negative z. 49 minus 43 is 6. And then divide both sides by -1. So that basically changes the signs, and your z is positive now, and your 6 is negative. So x is 43, z is -6. So I can either use this one and get my y. So I think I'm going to back substitute into that one. And then said y, which I don't know, plus z, which is a -6, has to equal 14. And y'all, to solve that, I'm just going to add 6 to both sides. And again, y equals 20. So my largest number was 43 for my x. My middle number was my 20. My smallest number was -6. So let's add these together. 43 and 20 is 63. Minus 6 is 57. So they check. So y'all, we're just going to go put them in. So my largest number was 43. That was my x. My middle number was my y, which was 20. And then my smallest number was the z, which was -6. So put them all three in there and then hit next. All right, y'all. So y is greater than x minus 1. So really on this one, the trick was being able to graph the line. So choose two x values. So I'm going to use 0 and 1. If x is 0, I got 0 minus 1, which is -1. And then if I put a 1 in there, 1 minus 1 is 0. So you got to get 2 points to graph, okay? So let's go back to Math Lab and see what we would do here. So I'm going to click to enlarge the graph. Now this will be the line tool up here. But the first thing y'all need to figure out is whether I want this to be a solid line, which it is by default, or do I want to change this to a dashed line? So y'all solid or dashed? Hey, also, let me remind y'all, this was yesterday's lesson, actually. So it is dashed. Good job, Olivia. Because remember, that's a greater than. It does not have the equals under it. So anytime it's just a greater than and it does not have the equals, you got to click the dash line over here. So I'm going to click the dash line, and then I'm going to grab the line tool, the 2-point line tool. All right, now I'm going to graph my points. I had 0, -1, click. And then I had right 1 and 0, click. So the last question would be, remember, you got to shade these. So would I shade this above the line or would I shade it below the line? So we're going to shade it above. So to shade it above, you're going to click that little region shading tool. Looks like a paint can. And then come over on top of the line anywhere and click. Y'all, when you click that, it shades in the whole top part of that graph and you hit save. There you go. So then we what? Hit next. All right, y'all. So number 20, let me write this down. Y is greater than or equal to x plus 4. Y is less than or equal to 4 minus x. So the trick on this one is going to be drawing each line and shading it. We're looking for the region where it's double shaded, okay? All right, so let me see what kind of numbers I get, and then I'll see if I want to make this bigger or not. So I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to set up an X and Y table for it, and then I'll do the Y less than or equal to 4 minus X, and set up an X and Y table for it. So for the first one, I'm going to use zeros and ones for all my X's. So for the first one, 0 plus 4 is 4. And then 1 plus 4 is 5. So let me plot that one real quick. So I'm going to go out about 5. All right, y'all. So 0, 4 is 0, up 4. 1, 5, right 1, up 5. Now these are all going to be solid lines because they got equals in them. And let's see, that one's greater than, so it's going to shade all this above the line. All right, so on this one, 4 minus x. If I put a 0 in there, 4 minus 0 is 4. And then if I put a 1 in there, 4 minus 1 is 3. So I got 0, 4 for the second one. So 0, up 4. So that's that same point. And then 1, 3, right 1, up 3. So y'all, that's a solid line also. It's less than, so it's going to shade below the line on that one. So it's going to shade this away. So I'm looking for the region with the double shading, which is this left side. So y'all, we go to Math Lab, and we're going to go to the one that's shaded on the left side, which would be D. And y'all, I'm not going to say 100%, but I would say at least 95% of the time, it's the one shaded on the left like that one was, okay? Actually, every time I've done it, it's been the one that looks like D. What they do, they just move it around, but it's always the one sort of shaded on the left side there, okay? Oh, y'all, that was the last one, number 20. So at that point, we just hit submit and be done. All righty, y'all. So any questions over that review?